like, it's magic. It's magic what these things can do. You would not believe how powerful it is in generating these stories. They're pretty much like USA Today articles. How easy it is to create it and how easy it is to use it. All right. Now, the reason this is important is Gartner says, and talks about this all the time, like the number of people that find meaning and value from just numbers and graphs and charts is really small, right? Like it's like 30–40% of the population. That means there's this huge, large chunk of the people who we should be creating analytics for and providing that to people who just don't understand these charts and these graphs, right? It's very confusing for them. That's where these augmented analytics come into play, all right? Why is that important? Well, not only do people find bar charts and graphs hard to read or understand, but 65% of the people say that they're not getting the information they need, and they're just going off of their best guess, right? They're going off of a hunch. What's going on inside my data? I don't know. Just do this, right? And that's where these augmented analytics come into, right? The value that we have here is how quickly anyone can deliver these solutions and how dynamic they are in nature. This means that these solutions truly scale to meet all of the people that are working inside your organization and are not just for that C-suite. If you think traditionally, our executives in our organizations, the CEO calls out to the CFO, say, hey, CFO, I need someone to explain this to me, research this and come up with an answer. CFO just does that, right? Or the CFO has a fleet of people and they reach out to analysts and analysts jump in and make these things happen, right? But that's for a very, very small portion of the organization, right? These analytics are able to be dynamically built on the fly and can be rolled out to everyone. In fact, the reason we won the Future Edge 50 award is we built this directly into our customer services dashboard, so that every time a customer calls into Rockwell and they're talking to our customer service department, this dashboard pops up and this little story, this little paragraph appears with anything insightful that's going on inside that customer's account is just available for them. So it's really easy for that customer service agent to see, oh, there's been an uptick in calls. There's been an uptick in priority incidents, right? That's a good indicator that this is a call that shouldn't be handled like normal, but should get escalated and this customer should get additional attention, right? The depth of information that this provided was just incredibly helpful. And because it's scaled, we're able to roll it out broadly across the organization. All right. Now, there are actually a lot of NLG tools out there. And so I'm going to go through the three biggest ones, the most popular ones tonight. And I went through and I rated them on the simplicity. How easy was it to build out and implement? How customizable was it? Like, how much could you get in and tinker with it and make it do different things, right? And then the third category, how is the narrative generated? Like, if what's generated is brief or doesn't make any sense, that's not a very good narration, right? But if it's detailed, it gives you all the right information and it's flexible enough to either be long or short or brief, that's super helpful, right? And then I also rated these solutions on the over-architectural solution, like how sound is this solution for you to implement as part of your organization, right? Now, the first one that we're looking at is the Microsoft solution. Now, this is the Smart Narrative is I think it's still a preview feature, maybe not. This is something that was recently rolled out and it's part of the Power BI solution. You might have to go in the preview features to enable it, but basically it allows you to just, whatever you have, whatever data, whatever visuals you have on your screen, you drop in the Smart Narrative and it writes it out for you, right? And it's completely customizable and formatable as you would with anything else that you're working on, right? Now, the next solution out there is Arya. Arya is a technology company that's out there that specializes in natural language generation, and they've got a whole suite of tools that go from business intelligence all the way through to Excel. You can embed that inside of your apps. You can embed it inside of your websites, wherever you happen to be. You can embed these solutions as part of this, right? So. And we're only going to cover the Arya for BI inside my demo tonight, but know that you can do the same functionality across the entire solution, right? And you can do that because it's all API driven, so that the reality is this solution works and exists, pretty much anywhere where you can feed data in, it can churn words out. All right. And then the final one that we're going to be evaluating is narrative sciences. Narrative sciences is the Coke in this world. They were the classic people, the company that was servicing NLG solutions that are out there. In fact, narrative sciences, I believe at one point in time, they generated like something between 40 and 70% of all web articles on sports. Especially if they're happening in real time. Narrative Sciences APIs actually generated those stories that you read online. You thought they were being written by such and such author. The reality is Narrative Sciences stories were what were generating that. There's a data feed in for Major League Baseball or basketball or pro golf or whatever it is, and these stories got written by Narrative Science. Their entire company is focusing in on how you can democratize data stories, how you can democratize these insights and get those out and available to everyone, with their goal of it being as easy to implement, as low code of a solution as you possibly can, with as clean of a solution as possible. All right. Now, any questions about this before I hop over into the demo? Bueller. All right, I'm gonna hop right over to it. All right. So this is the Microsoft solution. You can see that you can build this out, and the thing I wanted to test was I had several things. I wanted to test also how interactive it is, and then how usable it is inside of my functionality. So in this case, I tested out a written pane, the story that was generated, and then also a narration that would show up inside of a pop-up. So how easy was it for me to configure these two experiences for this? So, and then how reactive it was. Now, this one was pretty easy. It interacts. You could see the results of it right here. Arya is the same, is very similar. I forgot to do one thing before the demo, so we're about to get fun here. So, again, we can build this out. Arya is a little harder on the config side, but not too terribly bad. Again, we can go in, interact with it. When I interact with something, the story rewrites itself, and I've got some really kind of nice formatting and laying out here. Also with narrative sciences, I have a very similar layout, similar functionality. I could create a story that can pop in, into a pop-up. I've got a nice layout here that's easy for me to use. When I interact with my data, it rewrites itself accordingly, and it all works pretty easily. But the question is, okay, hey, this looks nice, but how easy is it to configure? And that, good question. Now, we're not gonna hide anything here from you. I'm gonna start from raw, right? So I've got nothing out here, nothing up my sleeve, right? I've enabled my let me just see here. I believe it's in options and settings, options. And then in the preview features, there's the smart narratives visual. You have to turn it on right here. And it's already on, so I don't have to worry about it. So nothing up my sleeves. And then I go over to my smart narrative. I click on it. And I have a narration, right? So as you can see, that's about as easy as it gets when it comes to our implementation. I'm able to implement it. When I click on something, it rewrites itself accordingly. As I bounce around, it's snappy, it's responsive. I don't really have any issues when it comes to performance. So it's generating a fairly good story. Now, when I go into it, the configuration is a little, in fact, it's very robust if you really want to get into coding. If you want to get into just like configuration, there's not a lot of keys there. But other than that, it is exceedingly flexible if you want it to be, right? So that's actually a real nice feature, right? But other than that's what we have here. Now on the Arya build, we're going to go, and here's the big thing. When you start a build with a narrative and any of these custom visuals, I'm going to recommend that you actually start with a grid or a matrix, because this is what will show you, or a table actually. The table will show you the data that's being passed back in the API, and then you'll be able to see the insights that are generated from this. Okay. Now, Arya is a custom visual that you just import in. Just like you would any other custom visual. So file, get more visuals, import from a file. You can go there. But I've got this selected. I'm going to click on Arya, and it's going to assign the natural visual. Now I'm going to pop this out so we can really hone in and you can see what it takes to configure this. And I'll review those later. Once I'm honed in, all I have to do is go to more options. Oh, wait. No, go to this guy. These ellipses right here, and I go to custom narrative. Okay, here we are. Sorry, gotta sign in. Sign into my Arya account. And once I sign in, it's going to pop up. Come on now. Oh. NLG apps. It's going to pop up with a nice GUI. It's going to walk me through how I configure this. Okay. Now, some notes if you're working with Arya is that it does take, if you're doing a time series analysis, and that's the one I found I like the best narrations on. So that's where I started with. Arya does require you to use a field that's actually called year and a quarter that's actually called quarter, and they have to be in a date hierarchy called date hierarchy. Just a pro tip, save you 15 minutes of Googling if you ever sit down with this. Other than that, it's pretty easy to drag and drop and get up and running, right? So you saw the table that I had. I added in the fields on a visual just like I normally would. Inside here, I get them marked as a dimension, date, time, quarters a dimension, date, time, product category dimension, English occupation as a dimension, and then internet sales amount is a measure, and the more sales you have is a good thing, right? Whereas like defaults or something, or chargebacks or something would be a bad, right? So this is a good thing, right? Go on to the next thing. I go through and I configure this piece. I want to do a time-based variance. You can also do descriptive or targets or describe a pie. Just there's several different options in here, but we're just going to focus in on the time-based variance so we can get on with these things. Go on to the next one. Now, Arya provides 3 different levels of narration that I'll give you: summary, just the important things, or tell me everything. Now, when doing the evaluation, I always like to go as deep as a story can so I can see how robust of a natural language generation is going to come out of a tool. But often in actual practical use, I'll go for the smaller or the refrained or the summary version, like especially in a pop-up, people don't want to read a whole bunch of stuff. But in this case, I'm going to go big, if or as deep as you can. If you're building out a report where you want to show a lot of stuff, do make sure that you're giving enough space on a given report to make that work. All right. All right. Once that's done, I click on generate text, and voila, I've got my narration all generated. Again, one of the big reasons I really like this one is how easy it is to build and configure. That means, you don't need a PhD in data science. You don't need to have spent, a decade, running through ML models or anything like this. Literally anyone can configure this out, right? And then the next one I tested out was the narrative science. Again, I started out with a matrix visual here, or a table visual, so I can see the information that I'm passing back into the system. Right? I import my custom visual, the narrative sciences custom visual. I add this in. And now it's going to, I'm going to have the same experience with the narrative sciences visual, where it's going to ask me for some more information about the type of narration I'd like to write. In this case, I'm going to say I want to write a continuous narration, and it's going to take a swag at, I think this is how you want this to be configured, which maybe it is and maybe it isn't. But, if it's not, it's very easy to go in and click on the little gearbox and tell it how many drill downs I want to see. So maybe I only want it to go down, one, only down one level. I can do that, or I can say go down 10, or however I want, or however much I want. One of the things I like the most about the narrative sciences visual is with this control, that means I could add in 50, 60, 70 measures, however many measures I want into this. And then I can control the number of drill downs, stories it's going to tell about my measures. And then it's just going to call out the most important measure or insights that it finds amongst all of that information. That can be really important in helping people summarize everything that's going on potentially in a report. If you have 50, 60 different measures on it, or even 10 or 20 different measures, it can be hard to find what are the key things that are most important for you. This can really help you focus in on it. And one of the big things I also point out is that sometimes write this huge long narration where there's lots of insights that can be gained. But other times, and this is equally as important, you won't see much written out. It won't generate a lot. That means that it's often there's not a lot of stories. There's not a lot of stuff going on inside the data, right? The trends are flat. It's just kind of, there's nothing really going on. That could be a massive time saver when you're trying to understand what's happening inside your business. All right. But going back into this, I can go in and I can customize this. So I can make this year and years. I can make this territory, territories, right? I could even add in some additional variations on this. I could start to say, what's my how do I want this sorted, right? I want to talk about from 2010 to 2012, right? I can give some descriptions around this. So this is money, more of it's good. Yeah, it should be summed up. I can provide some insights onto the relationships. If you have some data scientists in your area that want to really hone in and provide you some correlation relative metrics around when you should say something and when you shouldn't. Because if you work in a finance organization, there might be thresholds that you want to put on when a story is relevant or not. You can do that all inside here. And then finally, this is one of my big favorite things is you can call out how you want the narrative to highlight things that are going on inside your story. If they're good, you want them to be green, and if they're bad, you can mark them as red. Or wait, this is what people ask you to do, is to do red. I'm going to ask you to do either this bright pink or this purple, one or the other. The reason being is cognitive scientists have shown that We've all been kind of classically conditioned to overly respond negatively to red up to 17 times more than what's the proportionate amount that you should respond to a red value. But if you use a hot, bright pink or purple, it still carries the same negative connotation, but it's much more in line with the number that you're looking at, right? So, if you've, as an organization, let's say you lost $10,000 in red, people will treat it like it's a $170,000 loss. If it's in pink, they'll treat it right, like it's a $10,000 loss, right? So, if you can get your business units or people who are reading this stuff to be okay with the pink, and you can explain it to them, that's great. It'll help people not, lose their minds. But red is there as well. But again, and that's about it. I've finished configuring it. I can go into my format here. I can do some stuff around the type. I can, change it from paragraph to bullet list, and I can go through. I can make some changes on that. But other than that, generally speaking, I'm done. All three of these, as you can see, are something that literally anyone can do. Anyone can put this in. Anyone can build this out. No real, magic, nothing up my sleeve. Super easy to do. This is stuff MVPs strive for, but anyone can implement. So you don't have to be an MVP to do this stuff. All right. Now, before I get into like the rankings I put together on this stuff, does anyone have any questions on this? No? Okay, I'm going to quick go into the rankings because I do want to give it some time for Power BI version or Gen 2 to see if anyone has questions on that. So I'm just going to quick run through these. So I said for simplicity of solution, Microsoft and Narrative Sciences, definitely gold medal there. Arya, still pretty close, silver medal for them. It wasn't like there's like leaps and bounds or the differences, but definitely these two came out above. When it came to customization, I said Arya and Narrative Sciences had a much easier and more customized, solution there. I mean, Microsoft, you can really dig into it, but it's much harder to do. You have to really get into the DAX and whatnot compared to just clicking on it. When it came to the narration generated, when I ranked this and when I did this presentation, narrative science definitely takes the cake, and that's still true to this day. I said Arya is a silver medal. It does a pretty good job. If you kind of saw the two narrations between the two, narrative sciences had a much more robust narration than Arya. And at the time of this presentation, Microsoft, their APIs were not turning out as robust of a write-up as they are today. So they must be doing something behind the services to improve that, because it's gotten a world better. Solution, I think Arya has a much more robust, fuller solution that, especially upon implementation and security, although Narrative Sciences does a lot of that as well. And then Microsoft's great, but it's only available inside of Power BI. I mean, you don't need anything additional, but the flexibility is there's some, it's not quite there yet. So these are the rankings and the medals that I gave them with the pros and cons that are out there. You can kind of look over this stuff. I'll make sure that these slide decks available for you. But really the recommendation is everyone has the Microsoft solution as part of Power BI. So you're starting with that to begin with. If and when you find your organization is looking to do something more with that, look for one of these paid solutions like Narrative Sciences or Arya. They're incredible when it comes to adding value and context to your reports. I highly recommend them as part of your solution. All right. Now, questions about NLG or any of those topics?
Yeah, maybe I'll seed the question pot here, Chris.
Awesome.
So going back into the first visualization we looked at there, how do screen readers and accessibility handle that narrative? Is the screen reader able to pick up on it for accessibility purposes?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure Microsoft's and All three of them are accessible through that. I've seen some stuff on that, but I have not. I've not tested it myself. Yeah.
We'll do a little playing around with it to see.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to stump you. So
that's all right. Good question. Okay. Now, if no one has any other questions about that, I've also been working in Power BI Premium Gen 2 longer than anyone outside of the engineering team at Microsoft. I've been using that for they literally got it up and running with 5 guys, and then they rolled it out to my team at Rockwell for some testing and stuff like that. Does anyone have any questions around Power BI Premium Gen 2? Now that's a brand new offering. It feels exactly like Power BI Premium, except for much faster, has dynamic scaling, and has some other capacities and capabilities inside of that when it comes to performance management, scaling up, and potentially additional costs. Is everyone familiar with Gen 2? Have people heard about that?
Yeah, no, we've got a few people that are using it up here. Okay. So yes.
Okay. All right. So every time I talk about that, or the last few times I talked about that, people had hundreds of questions. So maybe people are understanding what it is now, and it's not as big of a deal. Okay. If you've heard about it, not read much into it, it basically they've rebuilt all the back-end engines and the servers for better management and performance. They're faster. They do dynamic memory management better and different. I was looking up I had a slide on that one, and now I can't find it. But basically, one of the challenges, especially when it comes to like analysis services, is the number of models you can fit on a server was really confined, right? The advantage Power BI brought is that you could deploy a model into Power BI through the Power BI desktop, and they'd hot swap that model in and out of memory pretty quickly, and you could have lots of models out on a Power BI Premium engine. But that was, there was only so much you could still cram into Power BI Premium. There were still some real hard limits that you could, kind of encounter here. Power BI Premium Gen 2 really kicks that up a notch. The performance of the models are like 16 times faster, if not much more. And the ability to store additional models on top of each other and hot swap them in and out as users come in and interact with them, it's much faster, and you can have many more models exist inside the same space without having performance issues when your users are coming in to work on the models and see those reports. They also have, as Gen 2, what's about to be released is the ability to scale up. And so inside of Power BI Premium, you have, a P1 is 6 processors, a P2 is 16 processors, P3 is 32 processors. But if during peak processing you need more, you just simply attach an Azure account to it, and it will dynamically scale up and give you the additional resources necessary, to accomplish your needs. Some words of warning or caution. When it does scale up, the scale is for 24 hours. So even if you have something that spikes for an hour every day, you'll end up basically scaling every day. So at that point in time, it will be more cost effective for you to just simply go from a P1 to a P2 or to a P3, or to break out or spread out your models. Honestly, thank you guys, very much. I really appreciate being part of this. Do please go out and check out my website. It's out on krosbi.com. I'll post the link inside the chat. And then, as Chris was saying earlier, please do consider presenting at your Power BI user group. It is incredibly important on your learning curve to go through and help other people learn how to work inside of a technology space, right? Doctors have been following this method of learning for about 3,000 years, which is see someone do something, do it yourself, and then teach it to someone else. There's no better way to learn that. These Power BI user groups allow you to complete that circuit. Not only do you get to see what other people are doing that you can then take back to your work and do it yourself, but you can come back into these Power BI user groups and do these things, teach what you learned to someone else. All right. So please, please, please check this out.